Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. I have an incredible bluegrass group on tap today for the podcast. My wife Leslie scours social media, and she pitches potential guest ideas. And this is one that she marked that said ASAP. So I made sure that I reached out to today's guest. Now, they play original tunes, classic bluegrass numbers, jazz favorites, and covers. The band is Dunlap and Mabe. From the band, Jack Dunlap. Jack, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
Jack, you're a guitarist for Dunlap and Mabe, but previously you were a mandolinist for solo projects leading up to it. Can you kind of take us through your musical journey of when you first picked up a musical instrument to, let's just say, the COVID time frame? What was that all about?
Yeah, so I started playing mandolin when I was 12. My older brother plays, and there's 8 years between us. So he kind of took me around to bluegrass festivals and stuff and helped me learn how to play. So I grew up playing mandolin and guitar. When I was a teenager, I had a band with my little sisters, and we played around regionally, locally, just some small stuff like that, where I played guitar. And then my brother wanted to start his own band, so he pulled me in to play mandolin, and that's kind of what I did for about 7 or 8 years. I just played mandolin with him. And then I wanted to kind of break out on my own, try my own stuff. So I started the Jack Dunlap band, which was mandolin, saxophone, bass, and drums. My goal with that was to put the mandolin in a setting that you wouldn't normally see it in, more like a jazz or a rock setting,
right?
Rather than like folk or bluegrass. So I did that for a little while, and then COVID happened and shut everything down. So
yes, it did.
I switched my focus to, I wanted to do a solo project of just mandolin or like mandolin and bass, just something very stripped down for a really long time. So I used that as my opportunity to do it because I figured I'd be doing a lot of solo performances, a lot of duo performances, some smaller scale stuff since, there wasn't a lot out there. So I had to scale back what I was doing. So, yeah, I took that opportunity to do that. I had some songs that I had written for the band that I redid for solo mandolin. And, it was just that record, the Isolation Sessions, was just myself on mandolin and singing, and my bass player, Alex Kimball. So,
what floors me about this whole thing is, the COVID shutdown took place, and all of us were planning on doing all the things that we said we were going to do if we had the time and didn't do it. You did this, and the album goes #1 on the Airplay Direct chart in May of 2020. That's phenomenal work, man. Nice job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure like how long the shutdowns would last, so I was like, well, I got to get this done while I can. So I think the whole thing took me about 4 to 6 weeks from start to finish, which is only the fastest I've ever done anything like that. Normally it takes me a few months, but when we did it, we cut it mostly live in my son's bedroom. Mm-hmm. It was cool. I imagine it went to #1 because nobody else released music at that time. So
don't say that. Come on now. Give yourself a little bit of credit there. No, it's really good stuff from what I was able to hear. I really, really like this stuff, and I want to give you some kudos on that. Next, you wound up teaming up with Robert Mabe, Dunlap and Mabe. Where did this all come together? How did you meet Robert, and how did the Stumbling Out of the Gate come out in 2022? How did this all come to be?
So I actually met Robert in December of 2012. It was actually so the band that my brother wanted to start, where I played mandolin, we were playing our first show, and Robert just showed up. I guess he was like wanted to meet me or something. So he came to talk to me, and he actually came in and he was like, yeah, my name's Robert. I've got a really successful band. And I had no idea who he was, and I was like, cool, man. But yeah, we just we collaborated, our bands collaborated for a few years, and he did a solo project in 2016, and I played mandolin on that. And I did some gigs with him on and off through the years. But then in 2019, when I wanted to leave Bud's Collective to start my own thing, I told Robert that if he needed a guitar, I knew he needed a guitar player. So I told him that I'd play some guitar with him while I was, trying to build up my project. And then, 2020 happened. All of our gigs got canceled, switched focus a little bit. And And then towards the end of 2020, I kind of got really into playing guitar again. I played a lot of guitar as a teenager, and when I switched to mandolin, it was kind of like starting again. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of the same thing. Like when I switched back to guitar, it was kind of like, starting again and finding like all the stuff that I used to really like about playing music. So I got really into playing guitar, and I decided to do a bluegrass project, just a Jack Dunlap solo bluegrass project where I play guitar and mandolin. I was going to get Robert to play banjo, our fiddle player Mason to play fiddle. I was going to have a different bass player on it, just a bass player I've been wanting to work with for a while. But I had finished a few of the songs, and then Robert and I started playing a lot of gigs together again, and sometimes it would be the Jack Dunlap band. Sometimes it would be the Robert Mabe band. And it started to get kind of confusing for people. So we were like, well, why don't we just start one thing? And that's where Dunlap and Mabe came from. So I scrapped all the stuff that I had done for the solo project and just started again. A lot of the same songs are on Stumbling Out the Gate, but that's where Stumbling Out the Gate came from. So like all the songs that I sang on that record, except for Goodbye Marie, were originally going to be on my solo project. And then there's a couple on our new album that's coming out this year that were also on that, but also some old songs that I had written for the Jack Dunlap band, like the funky just saxophone, mandolin, drums project. So, but yeah, that's how we got here today.
Awesome, very good. The first song we're going to feature today is one from that debut album called "Sit and Watch the Rain." The video is absolutely beautiful, and the music is sensational too. What's the backstory on it?
So, I mean, I just kind of was playing around on guitar one night and came up with that little riff. I mean, it's a pretty generic riff, I think. I actually have a couple other songs that sound kind of like it, but I really liked it. So I kind of came up with the chorus and just went from there. A lot of my songs I try to put metaphor in, so this is kind of a metaphor for being depressed and drinking all the time.
Okay, Sit and Watch the Rain from the album Stumbling Out the Gate from Dunlap and Mabe, featuring today's guest Jack Dunlap, right here on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
Watch it rain, I won't think about the pain you left here in my heart when you tore my world apart. You cheated and you lied and you let me feel it dry. All my hope has been drained, so I'll sit and watch it rain. It's another sorry tale of a love that's gone stale. I'm a victim, so they say, of the love she threw away. I'll climb the great escape and it starts to take shape. When the rain begins to fall, I don't think of you at all. If I sit and watch it rain, I won't think about the pain you left here in my heart when you tore my world apart. You cheated and you lied and you let me feel it dry. All my hope has been drained, so I'll sit and watch it rain. See the earth be made anew till the sun comes shining through. Till the sky turns to gray, my world is in dismay. I don't have to run away if I can't sit and watch it rain. If I sit and watch it rain, I won't think about the pain you left here in my heart when you tore my world apart. You cheated and you lied and you left me feeling dry. All my hope has been drained, so I'll sit and watch it rain. Sit and watch it rain, I won't think about the pain. You left here in my heart when you tore my world apart. You cheated and you lied and you left me feeling dry. All my hope has been drained, so I'll sit and watch it rain. If I sit and watch it rain, I won't think about the pain. You left here in my heart when you tore my world apart. You cheated and you lied and you left me feeling dry. All my hope has been drained, so I'll sit and watch it rain. All my hope has been drained, so I'll sit and watch it rain. All my hope has been drained, so I'll sit and watch it rain.
Sit and watch the rain from the album Stumbling Out the Gate from Dunlap and Mabe right here on the Someone You Should Know podcast. Jack Dunlap is our guest today. We talked about Robert Mabe playing on banjo. Let's give credit to a couple of the other players in Dunlap and Mabe. You mentioned Alex on bass, Alex Kimball. What's his story?
Oh, I actually met Alex when he was in high school. He's 5 years younger than me, but I was dating his music teacher in high school, and she's now my wife.
Oh, there you go. So, there you go.
But yeah, I was helping her out with running sound and set up for a talent show that she was doing. This was her first year teaching, so I stepped in and helped her do some of the stuff that she wasn't sure how to do, and. I met Alex was going to the school and he was part of the talent show. He was part of the band and he was doing an act with a couple of his friends. So I just remember looking at this weird kid doing this weird act, and I was like, all right, whatever. And then a few years later, I was at an opening for a new music school out in West Virginia, near where Alex is from. Uh-huh. And he came out to talk to me to try to get some gigs because he was going to Shenandoah University to get his bachelor's degree. He was trying to pick up some more gigs, so he came to talk to me. And I was really desperate for a bass player the next weekend, so I was like, "Cool, what are you doing next Saturday?" And he came out and he knocked it out of the park. And I kept getting him for filling gigs, and then. When COVID happened, I brought him in for that project, and we did a bunch of duo gigs together in 2020 and into 2021, and it just made sense to keep him on for the Dunlap and Mabe project. And he's turned into a fantastic bluegrass bass player.
Yes, he is. It's an upright bass. If anyone's asking, look, that sound quality of that is just so phenomenal too.
Oh yeah,
and he's not he's not a slouch in any way, shape, or form when it comes to that. All right, let's talk about your fiddle player and your mandolinist.
So Mason, our fiddle player, I've known him since I was about 14. He actually used to play in a band with my brother, and I just kind of followed those guys around for a while I was learning how to play. But he's just an amazing fiddle player. Definitely one of my favorite fiddle players. He was playing with a band called Aldi Blaylock and Redline for a while. They're kind of an international known band. But they weren't playing too much, I guess, because of COVID. Trying to get started back up, it can be hard sometimes. So he was playing some gigs with us, and then just kind of morphed into a full-time gig for him. So, but yeah, he's a fantastic fiddle player. Definitely one of my favorites. Great at bluegrass, classical. Whatever you need him to do, he'll just step up and do it. So, and then our mandolin player, Danny Nicely, he's kind of still a part-time member of the band. I'd love to have him on full-time because he's my favorite musician of all time. But I met Danny very early on in my playing. I was 12 or 13 when I first met him. And he's just really supportive of kids playing music. It's really cool to see him working with kids. He's a huge inspiration. But I actually, when I was 21, I actually apprenticed with him through the Virginia Folk Life program. Mm-hmm. And I worked with him for about a year and a half. And we actually wrote a bunch of songs and recorded an album together that won Best Bluegrass Album of the Year at the Washington Area Music Awards. And from there, like, we've done some shows on and off together, but this will be he wasn't on Stumbling Out the Gate. I just played mandolin on that, just doing some rhythm stuff. But he'll be on the Horses and Horsepower album, and just absolutely, he would go in and just knock everything out in 1 or 2 takes. And it's just phenomenal to watch this guy work.
Makes it easy when you're trying to get a dub and it takes 3 days to get a particular line down. I always get floored on musicians that say, "Well, it took us 6 weeks to do that song." I'm going, oh, "Wow, okay." We were talking briefly about the fact that Danny is one of the people that inspire you. What other musicians inspire you? Anyone out right now that you really like? Maybe Billy Strings or anyone like that?
I haven't really gotten into Billy Strings, but my favorite guitar player right now is a guy named Trey Hensley, who's he's out of Nashville. He's got a duo with a dobro player named Rob Ikes.
Okay.
Rob's won like dobro player of the year at the IBMA Awards like 13 times, I think. And Trey's just a phenomenal guitar player, great singer. I've been listening to those guys since their second album came out, and I could listen to them all the time. You can ask the band. Whenever I have the music playing in the car, it's something along the lines of either like Rob and Trey or Punch Brothers or something like that, but it's usually Rob and Trey.
Wonderful. Wonderful, awesome. Yeah. You alluded already a couple of times to the brand new album, Horses and Horsepower. Congratulations on the second album. I was told you have your whole life ahead of you to release your first album, but a very short time for that sophomore album because you got to strike while the iron is hot. What's your thoughts on Horses and Horsepower?
I'm really excited for this album. It kind of makes me nervous because I'm like, how are we going to top this? I think it's a very tight album. I think the songwriting's great, the harmony singing's great, the playing on is great. I'm really excited for people to get to hear it. We've got most of the songs are originals. There's one cover. We did one Bluegrass revival cover, and then a couple of songs that my brother had written that I took from the ashes. But yeah, it's a mostly original album. I think people are going to be excited when they hear it.
Very good. First release that came out is called Runnin'. What's the story on Runnin'?
So I actually wrote Runnin'. I started writing it a few years ago when I waited till the last minute to go grocery shopping, and as I was driving home, I could just see these huge storm clouds coming in, and I was like, oh. And so I guess it's sort of about my procrastination and doing things and waiting till the last minute. The album, the title cut off the album, Horses and Horsepower, is actually a song that I wrote about my dad, who passed away back in October.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Thank you. But he was diagnosed with cancer last July, and I'd wanted to.
That was quick. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
you lost dad that quick.
He had a hard life. A lot of my songs are subconsciously about him. Just some of the stuff that he had done through his life. But I wanted to write a tribute to him, and I tried to come up with stuff, and I couldn't really come up with anything until I met with the funeral home with my sister and her husband, and they're like, well, what kind of hobbies did he have? And we were like, well, he liked horses and trucks and hot rods. And they're going to write that, and my brother-in-law goes, no, he liked horses and horsepower.
There you go.
I was like, that's it. And I wrote that down, and I went home and I wrote the song.
Perfect. You always need that kind of inspiration. Well, the very first song we're going to feature is called Runnin', and we're going to feature that right now on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
I can hear the thunder roll, see the lightning up ahead. I can sense human nature, some things you can't outgrow. There's a better way to live. This running's all I know. This running's all I know. She treated me so fair. Yes, I held her close, but she was unaware that another was calling. One don't make a tame, so I left it all behind me to play this foolish game. 'Cause in the end, it's all the same. Pressure knife right through my soul. It never ran a flame, burning out of control. If you want to smooth things over, don't think I'll be around. Like a dry rain and a hurricane, I'm out of this town. I'm out of this town. I can hear the thunder roll, see the lightning up ahead. I can sense human nature, some things you can't outgrow. There's a better way to live. This running's all I know. This running's all I know. This running's all I know.
That's Runnin', brand new music from Horses and Horsepower, the brand new album from Dunlap and Mabe, right here on the Someone You Should Know podcast. Jack Dunlap joins us today. Jack, you've been on the road for quite a while as far as that goes. You've done your share of load-ins and load-outs. This next section is called Tales from the Road. It's those infamous road stories of things that happen at a gig, getting to a gig, on your way home from a gig, planning for the gig. Anything come to mind so far?
Well, all right. So I've got this. We took a trip last year. We went up to Salt Lake City, and on the way we stopped in Colorado Springs to play this theater, and the theater had the band name wrong listed. They had it listed as Dunlap and Mabe with an O.
Dunlap and Mabe, okay.
Yeah, which you know what happens. Like we told them and they fixed it online, but when we pulled up to the theater, the marquee still said Dunlap and Mabe. So we walked in and the sound guy greeted us. It was me and Mason. We walk in and he's like, "Oh, one of you must be Dunlap." And I was like, "Oh, it's actually Dunlap." And he goes, "Oh, I put the marquee up wrong." And I was like, "Oh, it's no worries." He's like, "Oh, I'll go fix it after sound check." Well, I didn't know at that time. Robert went and took an A out of somebody named Daniel's name and replaced it, and then put the O back in Daniel's name. So the marquee was right for us, but now it said Daniels.
Turnabout's fair play, I guess, you know.
Yeah. So later on that trip, we were in Salt Lake City, and the MC at the festival we were playing kept calling us Dunlap and Mabe. So Robert went up to him before our set, and he was like, "It's Dunlap, Dunlap." And he's like, "Oh, I got it." So he goes back up on stage, and he's going to introduce us, and he goes, "It's Dunlap with a P."
Oh my! Well, there you go. That's a pretty interesting road stories, and I hope you have a whole bunch more as your career continues. Let's talk about social media links. You've got a link tree, which I will put in the show notes for everyone to find all of your socials and such. One thing that I wanted to mention is I know you personally are on Instagram, and who is that? Is that your daughter that you were singing to? Who were you singing Amy to?
Yeah, that's my daughter. She's about to turn 3 months old.
She's a doll baby. That's a cute.
Yeah.
That's a cutie, and I think she likes Daddy's music too.
Yeah, she just started doing that yesterday. I forget what I was. I think I was finishing up giving a lesson, and they left, so I was just running through some songs, and she started to really react to when I was singing, and that was the first time that she's really like done that. I mean, I've played for her, but she hasn't really cared until last night, and yeah, I was like, I showed her mom, and her mom took the video, and it was it was really nice.
Awesome, very good. Yeah, that was really cool. Be sure to check out Jack's personal Instagram page. I will include that, of course, in the notes also. Plus, we need to talk about tour dates as we're getting through the end of May here. You've got a lot of private events. You've got one in Richmond, Virginia coming up, Morgantown, West Virginia, Martinsburg, West Virginia. Those are all found on the Dunlap and Mabe, not Dunlop, Dunlap and Dunlap and Mabe website, which is also included in the links. Can you tell us a little bit about just in going out and doing all these private gigs? You're getting a good response?
Yeah, that's mostly what we do really through the year. We just play a bunch of private events, and we love it. I mean, we get to meet a lot of really cool people, see a lot of really cool places, and we can kind of play whatever we want whenever we do that kind of stuff.
Your booking information is on the web too, right?
Yeah, we've got I believe it's just a contact form. You can just go up to the website and send us an email. Or I believe our phone numbers are out there somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of town festivals, and there's a lot of small towns and a lot of country fairs love to have bands like you playing. So I hope you have a very busy summer.
Yeah, it's looking to be pretty good so far. So
awesome, very good. Final song we're going to feature is once again from that debut album. This song is my personal favorite, called "Flowers Down Below." Can you tell us the story on that one, Jack?
So this one, I was actually thinking about doing an isolation sessions too. So I actually wrote this one for solo mandolin originally, and I worked it up for. I wanted to do that bluegrass record, so I worked it up for that, and it just kind of came together as a bluegrass song. But really, it's about. I guess it's about like not being able to get closure from somebody.
Oh, okay. Awesome, very good. That's the song we're going to feature to close the show today, so we do get some closure here. But I do want to thank Jack for being my guest, and I also want to thank Jack for rescheduling this interview. We originally had this thing planned, and then we had tornadoes and thunderstorms come through the Chicago area, and we lost power, and he was so kind enough to say, you know something, I want to be on the show, so let's go ahead and reschedule. So I really appreciate you doing that, Jack, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for being on the show, and I wish you great success for 2023 and beyond.
Thank you.
Blood over and into the ground. I hear your words, but you never made a sound. Love is faded and I've nothing left to show. All I'm left are these flowers down below. My heart is broken, all I know is pain. So don't ask me why I'm in the rain. My love is gone where I don't know. All I'm left are these flowers down below. Find my way in the darkness? Would I find my love to caress? So talk about me, whatever you must do. Say I'm wrong and all the things you heard are true. I gave my all, but my all was not enough. You drank the wine, but don't refill the cup. If I knew my If I knew my way back home, if I knew my love would roam, would I find my way in the darkness? Would I find my love to caress? Would I find my way in the darkness? Would I find my love to caress? Boiled over, running to the ground. I hear your words, but you never made a sound. Love has faded and I've nothing left to show. All I'm left are these flowers down below.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.